Welcome to the Find Your Flow podcast.
All right, here we go. Welcome to Find Your Flow, Jim Marshall. It's so nice to have you here.
Thanks, Lisa. Glad to be here.
So, Jim, I'd like to start this conversation off with one question, and that is, what does Find Your Flow mean to you?
Well, it's something I've been doing for a long time, and it's something that is very real to me. It means figure out where you are, figure out where you've been, where you're going, and how you're going to get there, because that is the flow that leads to success.
Oh, I love that. And I cannot wait to hear how your definition intertwines with Septemics. So let's begin at the very beginning for those of us, me included, that does not know of Septemics, what it is, how it works. Can you please start off by just explaining what is Septemics?
Sure. The first thing I should say is that I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I crafted a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics and published it in the book, Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to humans occur in a sequence of 7 steps. Literally, the word Septemics means of or pertaining to 7. Septemics comprises a collection of scales or sequences, each of which breaks down various human phenomena into a hierarchy of 7 steps. There are 35 such scales, each of which is unique. And between them, they span the spectrum of human experience, by which I mean any problem, dilemma, situation, difficulty, etc., that any person has that has anything to do with people can successfully be analyzed by one or more of these scales, usually more than one.
So, as we continue with our conversation, am I correct in my understanding that phenomenon and experience are the same thing?
Well, they're closely related. Experience is the way the phenomena impacts you. You have an
Okay.
experience. The phenomena is the actual thing, like the rising of the sun is a phenomenon. Okay? So then you could say to somebody, I just saw the sunrise. Now it's a fact. It's not a phenomenon because they didn't see it. But it's a thing that actually occurs that you can perceive somehow. Whether or not you perceive it, it could still be occurring. I mean, there are planets going around suns that you and I know nothing about, and those are phenomena. We just can't perceive them. So
Okay.
phenomena is really the best word for reality.
Okay. So we have these aspects of life that are happening all the time, whether they're perceived and experienced has no bearing on them. They just simply are.
Right. And as regards Septemics, that is extremely relevant because the septemic phenomena, which I discovered over a period of years, have been there for thousands of years. How many thousands? That's a speculation.
Okay. So since the
But
beginning
it's very
of time.
easy for me to go back. Well, I don't know that I would go, that's pretty far back, the beginning of time. I mean, the beginning, we're talking about before there were galaxies, if you're talking about the beginning of time.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
certainly they're here for the 6,000 years of human history that we know about. Because it's very easy for me to go back as a serious student of history and observe these phenomena in historical events and historical personages. And one of the things I do in the book is talk about actual historical persons and how they relate to these phenomena so that you can actually see an exemplar.
Which I'm going to ask you to take us through in just a minute. But how did you discover this?
Okay, well, the story really begins when I was accepted into engineering school at the age of 16. Now, of course, at the time, I thought I was going to be engineering physical things like airfoils and motors and electrons and such, as did all the other engineering students. But by the time I had my bachelor's degree, it was clear to me that I wanted to engineer the human psyche because it is the area of greatest unknown, of greatest mystery, and more importantly, it is the area in which we as a race are failing miserably. 95% of the problems in industrialized society are because people don't understand people, don't understand the wife, don't understand the husband, don't understand the boss, don't understand the son, don't understand the preacher, etc., etc. And that's why more than 50% of the marriages in the United States end in divorce. And that's why all over the world, people routinely elect morons and criminals to run their governments because they don't
Break that
understand
down
them.
for us, please.
Right. So look, you have this happy couple, right? They're in love. They come to the altar. They promise to love, honor, and obey till death do us part, right? There's not a cloud on the horizon. 5 years later, they're in divorce court. They each have lawyers. They're lying to the court about what the other person has done. They're fighting over their possessions. They're trying to prevent the other person from taking the children, right? This is all standard stuff if you know what goes on in divorce court, right? So what happened? What happened? Clearly, they did not understand one another because if they had, they either wouldn't have gotten married, they would have said, "This is not the guy for me," right? Or they would have lived happily ever after, as is the case with many people. So I should tell you, when I was a young person, this data did not exist because I hadn't discovered it yet. So I made the same stupid mistakes that everybody else makes. Now, for me, that absolutely does not happen, cannot happen, will not happen. So I have a very stable, pleasant, predictable, successful life now. Because anything that has to do with people, I'm on top of it. I look at a person and I can analyze that person on a scale in a matter of seconds. And so because of that, I can predict what that person is going to do and or say. And as a result of it, I can manage the situation. So this is extremely useful, beneficial information to have. So let me finish answering your question because you asked me how I came up with this and I didn't finish. So to make a long story short, beginning after I got out of college, I had a long career as a human development engineer, working one-on-one with hundreds of clients of every description to help the client attain higher levels of responsibility, ethics, enlightenment, ability, and so forth, depending on what the client wanted. All of my clients improved as a result of our work. Incidentally, I started to notice that I could predict the outcome of the session. I never told that to anyone until very recently after my book was published. But through all those decades, I made notes. I would see something. I would see that the person was at a certain level and he was going to go up to the next level. I knew that. He didn't know it, and that's what would happen. You have to realize that. This went on for 40 years. So there were thousands and thousands of occasions where the clients verified my hypothesis without knowing anything about what I was thinking, how I was doing it, how I was operating. All the clients knew was they had some problem or unwanted condition, and they came to me and asked me to help them with it, and I did. They had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. And this makes this very important, valuable scientific information because there's no placebo and there's no power of suggestion. Furthermore, after I would observe this phenomenon in the session and write it down, I would then go out into the real world and I would see exactly the same phenomena. So, for example, I'd go to Walmart and I'd watch two women talking. And I'd say, oh, yeah, I see this woman is at this level. Exactly the same phenomena. And that, of course, would verify it. So by 1995, I had simply observed and recorded about 32 scales, all based on direct empirical observation. There's no theory of septemics.
Can you explain what a scale is?
Sure. So anytime you have a hierarchy, it's a scale. Right? Scala in Latin means ladder, right? It's a ladder. So there are many systems that have scales, Maslow's hierarchies, there's lots of these.
The ladder of emotions, yes.
Yeah. So, right. So I simply observed that the client was at a specific level. I never said it. I just observed it and noted it. And then as a result of our interaction, he would go up to the next level on that scale. And I would get another client and he would be at the exact same level on the exact same scale and go up to the next level on that scale. And as I said, this went on for 40 years and I just kept writing it down. And of course, the more I did this, the better I got at my job because I knew what the outcome of the session was going to be. And sometimes this would be on a scale of months or years. Like I would meet a couple and I would know they were going to get a divorce. Okay. I would never say that, but I would know. So I'd have some, woman come in, right? And I'd work with her for a long time, very happy with results. And then, 6 months later, she came and said, yeah, by the way, I divorced my husband. Oh, really? I knew that was going to happen. But that ability to predict for me is a way of life. And the people who know me are consistently amazed at how much I can predict.
Now, is that ability to predict behavior, is that based on the assumption that someone's pattern will not change?
Well, patterns can change, but at any moment in time, every person is at some level on every scale.
Okay,
the question is not, is the person on the scale? The question is, what level is he at?
Got it.
So let me give you an analogy, okay?
Yes, please.
But first, let me finish answering your first question because I didn't quite finish it. So, in '95, I had these 32 scales that I knew were correct because I had been watching them. They were just observably correct. And I was pondering a difficult client one day. And I had this 6-level scale that I had been using for decades that I knew was correct. So I was trying to assess this client against this scale, and I was having a lot of trouble. And then I realized, there's a 7th level to this scale. There's a level I had never previously observed because you have to remember, at some point, I had never observed any of these levels, right? All of this was starting from scratch. So as soon as I saw what that level was, I understood the client and I knew immediately where to insert it in the scale. That was not a question. And when I inserted it, at that moment, that scale went from being a line, which is what a scale is, to a plane, meaning a whole body of data. All of these data jumped out at me that I wasn't looking for. It's like this thing materialized in front of me. Now, the whole idea of math is that you start with a formula or an equation and you coax data out of it. That's how Einstein found E equals mc squared. Right? I took 26 semesters of math and loved every minute of it. So when math is present, I see it. It is not a vague thing to me, okay? So when I saw this 7-level scale manifest with depth, with all these intersecting, interlocking, interacting factors, I said, this is mathematical. Whatever this is, it has to be natural law because it's got math embedded in it. And anything that has mathematics embedded in it is natural law. Like, for example, the Fibonacci sequence or Newton's three laws of motion. So then my next thought was, I wonder how many of these other scales that I have are actually 7-level scales that had not been developed all the way. Because you have to realize I wasn't developing anything. I was just helping my clients and making notes. So then, knowing what I was looking for, I studied all these other scales. And in a short period of time, each of them went to 7 levels. And when it did, it manifested mathematically. So now I had 32 7-level scales, each of which had mathematics embedded in it. And having gone to school for 28 years, I said, whoa, this looks like a new subject to me because I never saw anything like this. And I was pretty well educated by then. So then I thought, wait a minute, this could really help people, this subject, because this is predictive phenomena about people that I had been using for decades. So I could go from helping people by the hundreds, which is what I had been doing as human development engineer, to helping them by the millions if I put it in a book and get it out so they can have it. So I'm going to have to write a book. The first draft of the book was finished in December of 95, and I immediately sent it to colleagues of mine, all of whom had graduate degrees in various subjects. And they all responded very positively. They had differing responses, but they all loved it. And that told me that this is exactly what I thought it was, which is a subject, a new subject that people would get and be able to benefit from. I then spent the next 25 years of my life working on the book because you have to realize first I had to discover the phenomena, and I pretty much already explained how that was done. Although I did find 3 more skills as I was writing during this 25-year period. Then I had to take this data and I had to use it to craft a workable philosophic system. Now, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool engineer. When they gave me aptitude tests, the top 3 of the top 4 things were different types of engineering. And I had already been accepted into an engineering school. I said, well, duh. This is, not news. I'm going to the right place. So, and I went to an top engineering school. There were 2,000 students, and we were all very much alike. I mean, we looked different. One guy's got blonde hair, another guy's got glasses, but we were very much alike. And it's pretty well known for people who've dealt with engineers that they are a type of person.
Engineers are a breed.
Yes, we are. So, 2 engineers, or I should say 2 engineering opinions and beliefs are completely irrelevant.
Right.
We are only interested in facts and results. So, in the world of engineering, you're not allowed to say, oops. You can't just have the plane fall out of the sky. You can't just have the bridge fall into the river. You can't just have the cell phone not work. Okay? So, the end product of a successful scientist is a theory, like the theory of relativity or the theory of evolution, right? But the end product of an engineer is a thing that works. So I had to create something that would work all the time for everybody. That took 20 years.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
So then you have to realize when I got this feedback from my educated colleagues, I rewrote the book because I said, okay, this is serious stuff. And then I would release it to students and colleagues and clients and such and get feedback. And then I would rewrite it. So there were about 6 rewrites of this book. And every time I rewrote it, it became clearer and clearer and clearer. Because clarity is what I wanted. Because from day one, my intent was for the average reader of English to pick up this book and benefit from it. And that's what happens. Because you have to realize now, since the first version of this book, 1995, it's been 30 years. So I've been watching people benefit from this for 30 years. So when a person looks at this at first blush, right? Like a guy's in a bookstore, he takes it off the shelf, he opens it up, he looks at it, he's going to say something like, oh, this makes sense, I see. It's just like the first time you look at the periodic table or the Pythagorean theorem. You know why? It's natural law. Now, I don't know if you can recall the first time you saw the periodic table, but the response is, you look at it and you see this thing, it's a little bit overwhelming, but as you look at it, you say, this makes sense. Hydrogen is 1, helium is 2, lithium is 3, blah, 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 and it goes horizontally and vertically. Now, when Dmitri Mendeleev invented it, we had 79 elements, and they were all accounted for. Now we have about 50 more elements, and they're still using the periodic table because it works. And the reason it works is it's natural law. And I can absolutely guarantee you, when we get to advanced planets, they're going to have the periodic table in whatever language they speak. And we will be able to convert our language into their language quickly, because we'll say we call it hydrogen and they call it Charigny-Bob. Okay, we translated a word there, right? It's going to be the same thing for the Pythagorean theorem. We're going to show them, they're going to say, oh yeah, we have that too. See? Because you can't become an advanced civilization without those things. And that will open the way quickly to us getting a leg up on language.
So can I ask you this? I guess it's the use of Septemics. Is it beneficial in my interaction with another person, my understanding who they are and how they function so that I can react appropriately? Or is it
Yes.
um or is it a manipulation of a relationship? I guess it could be used as a manipulation, I suppose.
Well, you're assuming that manipulate is a bad thing. I mean, when you pick up a cup to drink your coffee, you're manipulating it. That's what the word manipulate
Correct.
means, right?
Yes, correct. I
From the
would
Latin
say
word manus, hand.
so. Then when you say the management of human affairs, human behavior, what exactly do you mean by management? And can that be
Okay,
misconstrued,
let me give
right?
you some examples. I'll give you some actual examples, okay? I'm a single guy. About a year ago, I met a gorgeous blonde, glamorous, stylish, congenial. We were very interested in one another. So now we're going through the usual getting to know you stuff. What kind of movies do you like? What kind of books do you read? There's a lot of that, right? In the beginning relationship. What do you enjoy to do in your spare time? Blah, blah. So we had at least a half a dozen of those conversations. Now, while I was talking with this woman, I observed one day that she was low on a particular scale. And then I didn't say anything. And so then another day, we're having another conversation, and I noticed she was low on another scale. And then another time I noticed she's low on another scale. I said to myself, wait a minute. Because when you get a person who is low on several scales, probably means they're low on a lot of scales, which means they're going to give you a lot of trouble. This is not going to be a happy relationship.
I understand. Okay.
So I could just see this. This was not arguable. This was like showing me a chrysanthemum. You say, Jim, is this a rose? No, it's not a rose. It's a chrysanthemum. That's not an opinion,
Right.
right? No. So I said to her one day, remember, we hadn't had an argument, we hadn't had a disagreement, nothing like that. I just said to her, pass.
Mm.
I'm withdrawing. I'm not going to pursue this. She was shocked. You know why? She was so gorgeous. It's probably the first time that ever happened to her. Because most guys would have jumped right
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
and had a train wreck. That doesn't happen to me because I understand people.
Is there room for someone to grow and do the work, right? Do their own work to be able to meet you where you are? Because what I'm understanding is you're at a certain level on the scale, she's at a lower level of the scale, and maybe, and that's your choice and that's your right to make that choice. Maybe you don't want to do the work, right? To sort of get her to come up on the scales and get at a more level with you, at a more agreeable level, so that your relationship gets to grow together. Am I understanding that correctly?
Okay, so I have to start explaining to you some of the axioms of Septemics. There are 12 axioms which are on the website, they're not in the book. One of the axioms is a person can only move to an adjacent level. It is absolutely impossible to move to a level other than an adjacent level. If you're at level 4, you can go up to level 3 or down to level 5. There are no other possibilities. Realize I've been watching this for a lot more than 30 years because before I had the light bulb go on over my head about Septemics, I was working with this material. So that's number one. So if a person is at level 5, the best you can do is get them up to level 4.
And then they stall out, like that's it for their lifetime?
No, but first of all, you don't know how long it's going to take, how hard it's going to be, if
Right,
they're
right,
willing to do it.
right.
And then after they get there, you can move them up to level 3, but you still don't know how long it's going to take, how much trouble it's going to be, right? So I'll give you some examples. Adolf Hitler was at level 7, the lowest level on the scale of basic purposes. What could possibly be more important than knowing someone's basic purpose?
Very true.
Every person has one of 7 basic purposes. And most people, like more than 90%, live an entire life at one level of that scale. It's very difficult to move on that scale.
I can understand that.
It can be done, it happens, but it's a big thing. And this is for technical reasons, very specific reasons that I could explain to you why it's difficult to move on that scale. But it is a fact that it's difficult to move on that scale. So let's say you meet a guy and he's at level 4. So, guy you know in high school, right? So you go to the high school reunion 20 years later, the guy's still at level 4
It's very true. Very, very true.
because it's what I call a persistent trait. Now, many of the scales are what I call volatile traits. They change quickly and easily. The scale of evaluation changes by the minute. So you can just watch somebody go right up or right down the scale of evaluation right in front of you in that one situation. But as far as the scale of basic purposes, lots of luck changing somebody on that. I mean, it can be done, but it's for somebody to move up on that scale, it has to be some huge, very deep, personal, transformational experience. You see this sometimes, like you see somebody who, he's like a burnt out druggie who drinks and has no money, has no job. And then you see him 5 years later and he's married and he's got a regular house and he went up from level 5 to level 4. We don't know what he went through. He might have gone into therapy. We don't know. Maybe he went to AA, we don't know. Anyway, the point is, he's now at level 4, and he acts like a level 4. A person at level 4, that's the guy. He's got a house with a mortgage. He's got a car with car payments. He's got a wife with 2 kids. He's got a regular job. He takes a vacation in the summertime. That's why I call it a normal. He's a normal. That's level 4 on that scale. Remember, there are 35 scales.
Yeah.
So you can evaluate a person across 35 scales. And if you do, you will understand that person better than he understands himself.
The main reason I wanted to have you on here was because I love learning. And I especially love learning about things that help us get to know who we are so that we can level up, so that we can be the best versions of ourselves. So could you just take me through, like, I don't know, an average person of some sort, and how he or she can literally move through and become their best and highest expression in this lifetime? Is that possible, to be able to read your book, get a better understanding of who I am, so that then gives me a sort of game plan, a checklist? Go and do this and this and this and improve on that, and be able to consistently move up the scales?
It's not only possible, it's likely.
That's exciting.
And I'll tell you why. This is natural law, right? If you're on the 3rd floor of a building, it's not hard to get to the 4th. You just go up 1 flight of stairs. It takes a little bit of effort, but you get there, right? There's no way for you to get to the 5th floor without going through the 4th floor.
That's exactly what
It
I
doesn't
just
matter.
went, oh, I get it.
Right. So once you correctly know the level you're at, it's not hard to move up to the next level. You know why? It's the next level.
Cow, I'm almost afraid to ask
This
you
is
what
like-
level I am.
Well, you can ask, but I'm not going to tell you, because I tell everyone, never tell any living person the level of that person on any scale. Don't tell your levels to others, and don't tell other people their levels, because
I like that.
it's counterproductive and unethical. And I'll tell you why.
Those were the 2 things that were
Go ahead.
jumping out at me. Those were the 2 things. If you have this information,
Right,
how can you not manipulate, right? How can you not take away someone's free will? I very much like to empower people. So it makes sense to me to have this information to empower myself, to be able to then know who I am, change my behaviors so that I can continuously rise up into a higher expression of myself. But my one hang up was, ooh, how is this used to control other people's behavior? And that's thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, so let me explain what a human development engineer does. I used engineering tactics, engineering principles, engineering devices, engineering strategies, engineering concepts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to help the person to attain a higher level. So what I did was I used Socratic dialogue. And for those of you who are not familiar with Greek philosophy, Socrates is the most important person in the history of Greek philosophy. And he is shown in these many Socratic dialogues written by his student Plato as leading the person with whom he's conversing to an epiphany by asking the right question. That is exactly what I did with my clients. However, I was aided by biofeedback because every time you think a thought, the electromagnetic field around your body changes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not hard to pick this up on a meter. You just have to learn how to read the meter. So, for example, when a person would come to me for help, the first thing I would do is interview the person. That's for free, right? That's just so I get data. I'm not charging them for this, but I have them on the biofeedback. And I started asking them obvious questions like, how do you get along with your wife? How do you get along with your mother? How do you feel about your job? How did you feel about your education? Things like that, right? Kind of obvious things that a therapist might ask. But I'm getting responses on the biofeedback. So I say to the guy, how do you feel about your father? He says, okay. Nothing on the meter. Then I say, how do you feel about your mother? Boom! The meter moves. There's electromagnetic charge connected with this. See? And he says, well, I never really got along with my mother. Boom! Same reaction on the meter. I say, well, tell me about it, right? And he starts to tell me, and the meter comes alive. Now, I get this guy in a session, and I say to him, tell me about your mother. Boom! Same read. And I start to get specific reactions that tell me before he knows what went on with his mother. So, for example, if a person is upset, there's a specific electromagnetic phenomenon that reads a certain way. If a person is angry, it's a different phenomenon, reads a different way. If a person is keeping a secret, it's a different phenomenon. So I knew these phenomena, and I would see it, and I would say, well, did you have a secret from your mother? Boom! Yeah, how did you know that? Well, tell me about it, see? So I could use this to steer the person not only to know where to dig, but to steer him right down the channel to whatever it was. So I could get results similar to therapy, orders of magnitude faster.
Sure.
We're talking about 100 times or 1,000 times faster. So I could get a guy in and work for maybe 20 hours, and this would be the equivalent of like 10 years of psychotherapy. Okay? So this was just, I would never tell the person anything. It's just asking the right question.
Got it. That
So
makes so much sense to me.
that's
So much sense.
That's what Septemics enables you to do. So, for example, there's a scale of physical fitness. Okay? And I've worked as a trainer, and I've also been involved in athletics and fitness my whole life. And this scale is invaluable because once you know what level you're at, you know what you're dealing with. So if a guy comes to me and says, Jim, I'm out of shape, I'm overweight, will you train me? I say, fine. Now I talk to him and I get data. Right? If you say, I say, well, what's going on? What's the general? He'll say, well, I'm tired all the time. That's one of the levels on the scale. Tired. Okay? It's level 5. I'm not going to say to this guy, okay, let's get into the gym and start lifting. He can't do it. He's tired. I'm going to make sure he gets a lot of sleep. I might give him some supplements that help him to sleep. I'm going to try to get him away from high stress situations and get him to a place where he's not tired. See? So a month into our working together with the right supplements and he's sleeping, and he says, I'm not feeling tired anymore. Well, I know he just came up to level 4, which I call normal. Now I'm going to get him a gym membership because he's normal.
Wow.
See? So by using this technology, you're always right. I spoke to a friend of mine. I'm an investor. Spoke to a friend of mine. And I told him that, I play the stock market. He says, well, isn't that like gambling? I said to him, not the way I do it. The way I do it's not gambling. And that's pretty much how everything is for me. let me give you an analogy to show you how this works. Okay, that's easy for people to understand. Let's say you invite me to your house to see your garden. I'm into gardening, right? And so maybe you have a garden. I don't know, maybe you don't. But if you do, you might say, Jim, come over and look at my garden. Okay. So I go to Lisa's house and I go into the garden. And I'm going to say something like, oh, you have nasturtiums, chrysanthemums, hydrangeas, peonies, irises, roses, tulips, forget-me-nots. Now, the reason I can do that is I know a lot about flowers because I've been gardening since I was a little boy. Okay? This is no struggle for me. I don't have to think, gee, I wonder if this is a chrysanthemum or not. It's immediate. Okay? So now, if you bring some, let's say, 5-year-old girl into your garden, she is going to see and smell exactly what I saw and smelled. But all she can say is, these are pretty and they smell nice. That's all she knows. She doesn't know a hydrangea from a chrysanthemum, right? Now, most adults are like that little girl regarding people. They don't know what they're looking at, right? So Friday night, guy goes to a bar, right, to meet a girl, right? This happens millions of times, all the time, right? Goes to a bar, right? And he starts talking to this attractive lady, and he's thinking, well, she's pretty and she smells nice. That's the same thing the little girl just said, right? That's all he knows, right? He doesn't have any insight into where she is on any of these 35 scales. So when I meet a person,
I'm just, my mind is sort of moving into how wonderful it would be if conversations were meaningful. Imagine that guy, he sees the girl, he says, you're pretty, you smell nice, but then knows exactly where to start a conversation to start gauging, are we a good match? Instead of this, I don't know, superficial goes nowhere kind of conversation. What a different world we would live in if we knew how to communicate to each other.
let me tell you, it's even easier than that because people tell you their levels. They tell
Please elaborate.
Go on YouTube and listen to Adolf Hitler's speeches. He was at level 7. His basic purpose was to destroy. Now, many people would say, well, why would someone have that for a basic purpose? Well, fortunately, there aren't too many of those, but we don't have to know why. But it's clear. And as a student of World War II, I wound up studying the man. I was a serious scholar of military science. And when I was studying World War II, I would see that Hitler did this and he did this. And I'd say, why would he do that? That doesn't make any sense. Because you have to realize military science is thousands of years old. There's thousands of things that we know as students of military science that we should do or not do. And he kept violating those things. So what's going on here? Well, when I realized he was a destructive person, now I understood. He wasn't just destructive to the Allies, he was destructive to Germany. He was destructive to the Wehrmacht. He was destructive to his own family. He was destructive to his own officers. If you did something that made him mad, he had you shot. Right? That's destruction. So then I understood. I understood why he had a non-aggression pact with Stalin, but then he invaded the Soviet Union. His right-hand man, Hermann Goering, said, if the Russians get into the war, we will lose. This was not some idiot. Hermann Goering was an educated man, okay, telling this. But he did it anyway. Why? Because he's destructive. That's what you get from somebody like that. So what happens to me is...
It's like the scorpion. It is my nature.
Right. That's right. So this goes on with me all the time. I'll bump into somebody I see this person is at or near the bottom of some of these scales. I'm done. Done. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Yeah, that feels
I'm out the door.
exhausting. Like too heavy a load. Thank you so much, but there's got to be an easier way.
Right. And people make this mistake all the time. All the time. People are wrecking their lives inadvertently because they don't have this data. All you have to do is buy the book and read it. The data is there. You know, Sir Isaac Newton, who's the father of physics, famously shined a white light through a prism and got a rainbow. Roy G. Biv, right? That's what I did. So I took these 35 phenomena, I shined it through a prism, and I got the 7 levels. And they are inarguable. You know, it always goes red, orange, yellow, green. There's never a rainbow that doesn't go in that order because that is the natural phenomena. And if you understand physics, it's clear, right? So all this to me, as the creator of this, is perfectly clear on a scientific level. And of course, I could explain it all, but that's beyond the level of this conversation.
Now, are you categorizing behavior or vocabulary, what somebody is saying, what they're stating? If their behavior doesn't match what they're actually saying, what do you use?
Now, when I say people tell you their levels, it's not just verbally. They tell you by what they do, by how they look, by how they move their eyes, by their body language, by their decisions, etc., etc., etc. But getting back to Hitler, go on YouTube and listen to his speeches. You know what he's saying without articulating it? Destroy, destroy, destroy. That's what's coming out of his mouth. See? So I'll give you an example. When Obama came on the scene, I had no idea who he was. He had only been in the Senate for 2 years.
Yeah.
Most of us in the 49 states, other than Illinois, who had sent him to the Senate, had no idea who this guy was. So he's running for president. I'm thinking, I better find out who this guy is. He's running for president. So I conducted a septemic analysis of him. It took several weeks. I just listened to his speeches, watched videos, watched his body language, listened to what he said, how he said it, and it became obvious to me where he was on the scale of basic purposes. Now, I'm not going to tell you what I found because it's unethical and counterproductive, but it informed me, do I want to vote for him or not?
Yeah.
So this goes both ways. Sometimes I'll meet a person and I'll say, oh, this person is very high on this scale, very high on this scale, very high on this scale. This is somebody I want in my life. This is an upscale person. So, but you have to realize most of us are high in some scales and low in other scales. So you have a friend, right? And you know that this friend is low on this scale. So when it comes up, you know what you're dealing with. You just tiptoe around it.
Right.
So I'll give you an example. I have a friend, wonderful person, smart, successful, funny, love the guy, right? But he's what I would call a political extremist.
Okay.
So, and there's
Is
a
that
scale
low
of
on a
politics.
scale?
There's a scale of politics. Well, in the scale of politics, there are extremists on both ends.
Okay.
So, as I explained, those are the people who cause all the trouble. The extremists are the one who become terrorists, assassins, traitors. They bribe people. They fix elections. Those are all extremists. Normal people don't do stuff like that. So when this comes up, I know what's going on, and I just tiptoe around it. He says, Donald Trump, rah, rah, rah. I say, how's your son doing? He says, oh, he's doing very well. Really? Where's he living now? Oh, he's living in Virginia. Yeah, did he buy a house? Yeah. What town? See, we're off the subject completely. I do that all the time.
Love that you have a tried and true, proven methodology to create peace in your life. which I think is very necessary, especially right now with everything so polarized, to find that peace, and helps to sort of cushion relationships so that we're not completely dividing and, well, we differ on this one opinion, so you're out of my life completely. But to be able to find these ways of flowing, which I was wondering, like, how does this all come together with the concept of ebbs and flows, which are also in nature? But this now makes perfect sense to me. This is brilliant.
So you hear people talk all the time, right? They say, I don't want any drama in my life. You know, I don't want any stress. I know a woman, a single woman. She is, I guarantee you there's 50 million guys that would want to marry this woman. Okay? Easily. She's beautiful. She's smart. She's successful. She's funny. She's congenial, right? She's alone. So, I listen. She talks about, oh, I don't want stress in my life. See, so she had some bad experience. And now she's got this stress that she carries around, and it's wrecking her life. So I don't have stress in my life. I don't have drama in my life. I don't even have conflict in my life because I know what's going on. Now you have to realize this is bigger than behavior. There's a scale of civilization that tells how civilizations form. There's a scale of spiritual identity that tells where a person is spiritually. This goes way beyond behavior into other things. So behavior would be a subset of what you get from this. For the scale of government, there's a scale of government. The whole paradigm that everybody uses on government is completely wrong. That's why it's a mess. They're always talking about the left and the right. You know what? There's no left or right. It's made up. There's no left or it's not left or right. It's up or down. Just open the book and look at the scale.
Yes, you had mentioned that the scales explain why sort of power hungry, destructive people continue to get voted. That they're actually chosen, which baffles me to no end. I don't understand it. Why is that? Why is it that you can have an entire civilization? And I see, so I go back and I liken it to watching the cycles of world powers rise and fall, right? You can go back to Rome and you can see the Romans rise and conquer and then eventually recede and fail, right? And same with the Greeks. And I mean, keep going. You just keep going. China, same cycle. Japan, same cycle, right? Europe, just keep going through all of it. All the same cyclical, it seems, pattern of behavior that confuses me to no end, because how can you not look at a pattern and go, maybe we could change that? And yet we still have the same sort of type of person that gets chosen to lead. And I don't understand why. Why is that?
If you get the book and study it, you will understand that.
Okay.
You will not be confused.
Okay.
A lot of people don't understand Donald Trump. Even a lot of people who vote for him don't understand him.
Yeah.
I understand him perfectly. I'm from New York, so I've known about Donald Trump my whole life, basically, because he's older than I. So there's nothing about him that's mysterious. I know what he's going to say before he opens his mouth. I know what he's going to do before he does it. And I'm not saying I voted for him or I didn't vote for him. That's not what this is about. But I understand him. Okay?
Right.
So there's
make informed decisions.
all kinds of people. Right. Some people are easier to assess on these scales than others. For example, Alexander Hamilton, he was at level 2 on the scale of basic purposes. That was very easy for me to understand. And the people who've studied him, and I have read many of these people, they say the same thing. It was really obvious from day one who this guy was.
What is a
I mean,
level 2?
he was running a business when he was 13.
Yeah. Yeah.
Level 2 is the leader.
That makes total sense. For sure.
Now, other people, like, for example, George Washington, he was harder to spot. George Washington is at level 3 on that same scale.
And that is what?
That is the winner. The winner is seeking wealth. Now, wealth doesn't just mean money. It means different things to different people at different times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to him, it meant slaves, it meant horses,
Mm-hmm.
it meant land, you know. So it wasn't just money. But he was probably the richest man in the colony.
Would prestige fall into that as well?
I guess, yes, because the person wants to win.
Yeah.
A person who wants to win, whatever it is. I actually know somebody who many years ago, you know, we would play these board games like Monopoly, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a game. It doesn't mean you're not losing anything, right? It's just, and like if he would land on, you know, I would have a hotel on some expensive property he'd land on, and he would be so upset. He would just decide he had to win. You know? Well, I realized that guy's at level 3. He wants to win. So, you know, there's all kinds of things that I did with people. I don't care if I won or not, you know. Like I play basketball with my friends. I didn't care if we won or not. I'm having fun playing with my friends. You see? Some people, they really want to win.
Yes. Strictly for that title.
And that's
just different. For the W.
Yeah, it's different from level 2. The goal of level 2 is to conquer. So you might say, well, that's not a nice thing. Oh, really? It's a question of whose ox is being gored, isn't it?
That's true.
And when the North defeated the Confederacy, that was a good conquest, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It saved the Union and it freed the blacks. When the Allies defeated the Axis powers, that was a good conquest. Even for the Germans and the Japanese and the Italians, it was a good thing. Because look at history, they all did much better after we got those crazy people out of their governments. Right? So that was a good so there's good conquests and bad conquests. No, but you have to understand, the leader is down for the struggle. He's not there to feather his nest. Abe Lincoln was not interested in money. He was interested in saving the Union. He was at level 2.
Wow. This is just, so I love history. I love it. So to be able to read your book and start, you know, really looking at different historical figures and then, I mean, current, present day, and to know myself better, I think that this is fascinating. But unfortunately, Jim, we are out of time. I can't believe an hour has gone by so quickly. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for explaining what I assume are just the basics of Septemics. And please tell us, where can everybody find your book? Where can they start learning?
All right. Well, I want to invite your viewers to my website, which is septemics.com. SEPTEMICS, where you can see what many readers have said about it, what many journalists have written about it, what the reviews are. You can read sections of the book itself. And there's even a pre-recorded introduction to Septemics that you can listen to that explains it to a new person in 15 minutes.
That's fantastic. So listeners, I've been on the website. I will have a link in the show notes, and I can personally attest to things being laid out in a way that it's pretty easy to understand. You might need a dictionary to look up a couple of words, but other than that, it's pretty easy to follow along and start to wrap your brain around all of this. It's even easier to have you here to explain it to us. So thank you very much. I wish you the best of luck in getting this out to more and more people. because I truly believe the better we know ourselves, the better this world is going to be. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Before you go, Find Your Flow is now on YouTube. Subscribe to Find Your Flow with Lisa Roche and set your notifications to catch every episode as they are released. Joining this beautiful Find Your Flow community allows your energy to be included in every healing meditation. So subscribe and follow. And if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share it with anyone else you think would enjoy it as well.